Ridgefield's Inland Wetland Board meets on June 22, 2023 in their second hearing on 27 Abbott Avenue, an application to cramp 14 housing units onto a 0.44 acre parcel adjacent to wetlands and encroaching on the 100-foot upland review area. Because of 830G, only the Inland Wetlands Board has the authority to stop this overdevelopment and its many environmental and infrastructure drawbacks.
So I'm going to go ahead and open the meeting for Thursday, June 22, 2023. This is the regularly scheduled Town of Ridgefield Inland Wetlands Board meeting. In attendance, I see that we have Carson Fincham, Alan Pilch, Tracy Miller, Chris Phelps, David Smith, myself, Susan Baker, and we have Caleb Johnson, our Inland Wetlands agent, and Artie Paranjape, staff member and also recording secretary this evening. Next on the agenda, IW 23-18, 27 Abbott Avenue, plenary ruling application for construction of apartment complex, associated parking and drainage infrastructure within the upland review area of the wetlands. Owner Alimi Vitan, applicant Brian Carey, who I think is here. Meantime, Caleb, could you read into the record what we've received since the last meeting?
Yes, so we have correspondence, emails, and letters, 55 in total now. Alan and Tracy's resume, Brian Carey's resume, and then shortly before the meeting, a site plan was uploaded, dated 6/22/2023, an alternate site plan, a drainage report, Trinkus response to comments, an aerial PDF, an approved site plan, and that's all. Okay.
And what we do not have yet is either of our two peer reviews that are being worked on. That, correct me if I'm wrong, we're expecting to have those in time for the next meeting.
Yes.
So that's fine. So at this point, I guess we could ask Mr. Carey to go over the new plan or whatever it was that you would like to speak to at this time. I know you're waiting for the peer reviews for some of your comments.
Yeah, good evening. Brian Carey from Land Tech. I'm a professional wetland scientist with Land Tech. We have offices in Westport, Connecticut. Also with me tonight is Andy Salmalides, who is a professional engineer who worked on the project with me, and Jason Klein, who is the attorney with the project team from Carmody and Torrance. Just for a little background, we did update the plans in response to comments that we received from board members and a review that was submitted by Steve Trinkhouse, who was hired by, I believe, the neighbors on this application. Just for the agenda tonight, I know it's 10 o'clock. The previous item took a little bit of time, and I know you have additional information. I did put together a PowerPoint that I wanted to go through real quick, just discussing the wetland points of the application, and then Andy Salmalides was going to address the design changes that we had submitted in response to the comments. So I don't know if I would be able to share the screen. I can just go through this real quick.
Yes, you can. You should be able to share.
Okay, so this is just again, the project is project site's at 27 Abbott Avenue. The project overview is the existing site is 0.44 acres. It's been improved with a single-family residential house that was originally constructed in 1951. The proposed project is to construct 14 townhouse style units with improved infrastructure, including a stormwater management system and improved wetland vegetative buffer. The site is and will be serviced with public utilities, including sanitary sewer and municipal water, which are available to the site. I've seen a lot of discussions about impacts to wells. There are no wells on the property or in the existing residential neighborhood. Just to clarify, there are no wetlands or watercourses on the site proper. The regulated area is limited to an intermittent watercourse that is located directly off the site to the east, that is located on the Ridgefield Housing Authority's property. The proposed project will include a 22-foot average wetland buffer that will be heavily planted with native riparian plantings. We did do a ecological study of the property, looking at ecological communities. None were identified on site. The site is, as described, a single-family residential, but it is all in a, it's all been cleared and it exists as a grass backyard, and is very similar to the other properties surrounding the site. We did do a Connecticut, a request to the Connecticut DEP Natural Diversity Database. It did not identify any presence of state or threatened or endangered species on the site. Last meeting, there was discussions about flooding the site, and the site around the area around the site is not located in a FEMA flood zone or floodway. And to note, there is still an existing inland wetland approval that is for the site for a three apartment building, and that remains in place. That was issued in 2018. So we'll discuss that a little bit further. And again, the site is in a heavily urbanized area, which is mostly residential development, but directly to the east is the Ridgefield Housing Authority and the downtown commercial district. This is, I think this depicts the geographical location of the site pretty well. Again, mostly residential area to around the site to the north, south, and west. The limits of the wetland that were taken off the national wetland map and the town's GIS system shows the extent, the theoretical extent of the wetland area that is proximate to the property. Again, to the east is the Ridgefield Housing Authority property, which is heavily developed with residential. To the south east is downtown Ridgefield, and you can see that the areas, adjacent areas to the property, are developed as multi-family homes in most cases. One particular thing to note on this slide, though, is the density of development that already currently exists adjacent to the wetland. You can see the Ridgefield Housing Authority is built primarily, I would say almost a third of it, within the upland review, 100-foot upland review area of this wetland system, as well as this multifamily property that's located to the southwest of the property, and even the property to the north has development within the upland review area. So our proposal is not out of bounds with the existing land use around the wetland. The wetland. This is just the national. This is the Web National Cooperative Soil Survey, Web Soil Survey. Again, this area is the only area of wetlands directly off the site. It's made up of Ridgeberry and Whitman soils. The rest of the property is Woodbridge and Paxton soils. Here are photos that were taken recently of the existing wetlands directly off the site. Again, this is all on Ridgefield Town property. You can see that parts of it are intermittent water course, and even in June, you can see that the stream course was barely flowing at the time that these pictures were taken. There is a bit of dumping coming from adjacent properties, including the Ridgefield property, just brush and things like that. You can see the jewelweed and native wetland species, including skunk cabbage in here. But again, you know, it is an intermittent water course and doesn't appear to flow at all points of the year. I just want to go through this quickly because we did touch on this last time during our presentation at the last meeting. We did do a full feasible improvement alternatives analysis. We did update that analysis based on one of the commission members' discussion about having showing an alternative that had no construction within the 100-foot upland review area. So I'm just going to walk through that very quickly. After the meeting, I will submit the PowerPoint into the record and upload it to the permitting software. But just based on the time and the comments we want to address through engineering, I'll go through this quickly. First, we provided alternative one. This is actually, we said it was a no-build alternative, but we were discussing that in the terms of the previous approved plan that was submitted and approved in 2018. Currently, this approval is still in place. This was for a 3-apartment building. You can see that the majority of the building has been approved to be built within the 100-foot upland review area, with the residential house remaining in the front. This required a variance, which was granted by the ZBA. All those approvals are still in place. So this could be built right now under existing approvals. So that is our alternative. Alternative 2, which is a little bit more difficult to see, has a mix of townhouse buildings with apartments overlaid it. We didn't go with this alternative because parking was an issue based on the amount of apartments and the mix of condos that were up front. The apartments did not have garages, so there was no additional parking. Again, we're in this alternative. We are still maintaining that 22-foot average buffer from the wetland. So this was discounted just because from a parking standpoint, theoretically, it didn't work. This alternative was developed since last meeting at the request of one of the commission members. This keeps all of the development outside of the 100-foot review area. This alternative would be a 3-story apartment building with 27 individual units and basically having 27 parking spaces to accommodate those 1-bedroom units. Again, this is not the preferred alternative based on the height of the building and the need for the construction cost. While that is not necessarily something that needs to be considered as far as feasible and prudent alternatives, it does come in when reviewing alternatives because of the height of this and the geotechnical and the fact that this would need to be built on piers. We found this to be not the preferred alternative, which brings us to the preferred alternative number 4, which we're submitting, which basically, since our last meeting, we did do some design changes. It keeps the amount of units, 14 townhouses, the same, but it actually flips the building footprint from the north side of the site, as you see in this alternative 2 down to alternative 4, where we're actually moving the building to the south side of the property. This was done for a couple reasons, which we'll discuss during the engineering portion of the presentation. That being said, I just wanted to go through real quick. I know we're waiting for comments again, but we did develop a pretty robust planting plan that is a mix of native trees and shrubs along the wetland buffer that will include a conservation wildlife mix that will be planted along the buffer underneath the shrub layer and the tree layer. The idea being that this area would be a non-mowed area. It would be managed in a natural sense with invasive mitigation taking place over the first couple of years to make sure that the native plantings are established and no invasives grow in at the site. This also has a green space in the back that will again be planted with native species, and this would be a lawn area where the treatment system would be installed as part of this alternative. Again, the buffer would be maintained at an average of 22 feet long. There would be a level spreader put in here that would allow the water to slowly filter out through this vegetated strip before it would matriculate down off into the adjacent wetland watercourse area. That being said, I know we're going to receive additional comments and we will be ready to address those. I wanted to turn it over to Andy to kind of address some of the comments we received from the third-party review that was submitted by the residents and also some of the questions that the commissioners had.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Andy Sumalides. I'm a principal and professional engineer with Landtech out of Westport. I'm just going to share my screen and share some of these presentation materials with you. So you'll see here, Brian shared this same aerial image, but what I also added to this was our projected site here, and zoom in here a little bit so you could just see this cyan line again is the approximate limit of wetlands. It was actually taken off the WestCog. It wasn't flagged by a wetland soil scientist, but it is approximate based on data available to us. The magenta line is that 100-foot buffer, and you could see in here all structures basically around the entire perimeter of this wetland in close proximity to it. So I just wanted to point that out. I didn't put dimensions from every one of these structures, but as a visual, I wanted to share this with you guys to just to see what that looks like. I'll run you through the site. Again, we flipped the site to have the driveway on the north side now. It's not really a wetland issue or has much impact to wetlands, more a P&Z issue and helps with sight lines. That was predominantly the reason of flipping the buildings. So that's basically the major change to the site plan, site layout plan, I would say. Again, you still have the 14 townhouses. This is all bituminous concrete, or better known as asphalt, driveway, garages into each one of the units, dumpster location, handicap space, that lawn area, and that wetland buffer that Brian just spoke of. Stormwater, where we really want to concentrate on. There was a lot of questions at the first hearing, as well as from the neighbors consultant regarding stormwater and how this system would function. Does it function? for both the reduction in the rate for certain storm events, as well as providing the necessary water quality volume. So, excuse me. So the system is still in the same general location as it was before. What we're proposing is underground detention infiltration system, which are 36 330 Coltex. The Coltex, as you know, they're these plastic chambers, and you'll see down in our section that are surrounded by crushed stone and filter fabric. And what happens is the roof and the driveway gets piped into this system, which allows it to infiltrate, detain the water, and then let it spill out at a certain rate at a certain elevation. So the outlet pipe is placed at an elevation to detain the water quality volume, and then it's sized appropriately to reduce the storm events. So in simple terms, the driveway is actually pitched at the property line. So all new impervious surfaces, every inch of new impervious surface on this property is being captured and piped to this detention system. There's basically a crown at the driveway entrance, and all this runoff right at the property line goes down. It's pitched to 2 catch basins. These 2 catch basins are equipped with 4-foot deep sumps and hooded outlets. So what does that do? That's pre-treatment prior to getting into this detention system. This helps filter out sediment. It helps filter out oils and gases that spill from cars, those sort of things. It's a pre-treatment measure. It's both in your regulations and in the Connecticut manual for stormwater quality as a pre-treatment measure, and we thought it was appropriate here. So we equipped these catch basins 4 foot deep and hooded outlets. It's a nice pre-treatment water quality prior to this infiltration galleries. The roof, as you know, before was being piped directly to the level spreader and bypassing it with zero treatment. It did reduce our original plan, the 1, 10, and 50-year storm event, but it didn't contain all the water quality from all new impervious surfaces. We took all the roof runoff, and it is now being piped into this underground detention system, infiltration system as well. I'm hoping I'm answering some of the questions that some of the commission members also had. Feel free at the end to ask more questions. So I did a section through here. You have a section A and BB through these systems, just so you could see how they look and function. So here you have your slab on grade buildings. And then in here you have your detention system, 4 rows, 4 rows at 9-foot length. Here, one of the questions was, I think we originally had 1.7 feet, if I recall, of separation from the groundwater. We do have that 36 inches of separation. How is that achieved? By raising this retaining wall slightly to make that happen. And we were able to actually, I think our original wall was at 203.5 or 204. So I think it was 1.5 feet higher this retaining wall gets. So this is our underground infiltration system. You have your 36 inches before you hit your groundwater. This dashed line here is the existing grade. You see the system sits basically in the first 6 inches of the existing grade. And then it'll infiltrate down. The rest of this package is all fill around it. This outline in red of the system is what the water quality volume is. The requirement of water quality volume for the 1.5 inch rain event. And I heard in the last hearing, the 1 inch, you know, and that is typically industry standard, but this is designed for the 1.5 inch rainfall event for your water quality volume for the town of Ridgefield, which would equate to 1,735 cubic feet. This outlet here is that 6 inch outlet. So all of this volume within this infiltration basin is 1,750 cubic feet, greater than the requirement. So what happens there is that first 1.5 inches of rainfall goes into the roof, goes into the gutters, goes into the catch basins, into the piping system, and into this system, and then it'd infiltrate. So if we get 1.5 inches of rain, nothing is coming out of that level spreader. It is all getting infiltrated into the ground. Storms above that will meter out, right? So what we did was for the 1, 10, and 50-year storm events as required, we have a reduction in all those storm events. And I could show you later once I go quickly through that drainage report. So we meet the pre and post requirement, and we also are meeting the water quality volume requirement. And then how does this meter out? It comes out of this into a manhole structure. And at the manhole structure comes out at a lower elevation into this level lip spreader. This level lip spreader then, going back up into plan view, is spread across the whole length of that retaining wall. As you recall, there was some comments from the neighbor's consultant about a hardened edge. We added that into here. So you see this concrete, and you'll see it in the detail also. We have a concrete lip around the entire level spreader to make sure it dissipates all out at that same elevation. And then you don't get some scour here, potential scour, and some concentrated flow. So that concrete structure around that level lip spreader will allow it to dissipate over this vegetated buffer. And in this section, we have about 22 feet of vegetated buffer, adding more water quality measures prior to eventually this line here is the property line, and this is the flagged wetland line. So you're getting pre-treatment in the catch basins. You're getting treatment 80% total suspended solids, the industry standard that you get out of an infiltration, underground infiltration. 80% is the requirement of total suspended solids removal. So we're meeting the water quality volume. We're meeting the water quality criteria, I would say, for treatment. And again, the pre and post for the storm events. This section, very similar. One thing I didn't point out, this would be a cast in place concrete retaining wall. That's probably the best application for this. If you did some type of modular, there's potential not to get the full treatment and water penetrating through that and not getting the full treatment with infiltration basin. On top of that, we added a impermeable liner behind the wall to make sure there is no water penetrating through the wall, that you're getting that full 36 inches of treatment through the media below it. There was questions about test holes. There was test holes done originally on this site. They might not have been depicted or called out properly. So there was deep test holes, perk test, deep test hole, perk test, deep test hole. And then the infiltration base trenches here, underground detention, I should say, there was a deep test. We recently did a perk test. As I mentioned before, basically all the soil is right below the bottom of this system, right? So 36 inches down. We did a perk test 27 inches down into this soil. So, and it perked at a 1 in 10 rate. And I'll go through some of those things in a little bit more detail later on, some more of the calculations, but I just wanted to point that out, that the perk rate was done in the substrate soil that this system will sit right on top of basically, and will filter through. Originally we used a 1 in 20 perk because that was this percolation test, which was the closest result nearest our system. And we still use the 1 in 20 perk rate continuing forward, even though we got a field rate of 1 in 10 and applied the 50% factor safety or factor safety of 2 on it. So in our model, you'll see we've used a 2 inch per hour infiltration rate when 6 inches per hour was measured in the field. So we're taking a pretty conservative approach on what the actual infiltration rate is that actually exists out there.
Thank you.
I have a few more slides.
I'm sorry.
I know I have a pretty, I mean, I don't want to leave anything on the table. I know there was a lot of questions last time. If time is up, I mean, do we have the time to continue? I mean, I probably have another 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Well, given that it's late and given that this plan just landed today,
Right.
And we really haven't had time to absorb any of it. I think the most important thing is for you to finish whatever you need to address, because now we're going to have to send the new plan to our peer reviewers. And they will be addressing this plan, not the one we had before.
So this is Brian Carey from Land Tech for the record. I have been in touch with Caleb, obviously, just to kind of confirm back and forth to let him know that we were submitting updated plans and of course, in response to Steve Trinkhouse's memo, you know, we obviously know there's going to be additional comments from the town's third-party review. So just to not short circuit the process, I wanted to make sure that they were reviewing the latest and greatest plans to save everyone time and effort. So they should have those obviously now so that they can review these existing plans.
That's correct. So is there anything else you would like to include tonight, or wait until you see the rest of the comments?
I mean, I wouldn't mind just finishing up. I'll go quick, I guess.
Okay.
I'll just go through this quickly.
Well, and you'll get another chance when we meet again. So
No, understood. You know, there was just a lot of questions last go around, and I just want to clarify everything. You know, there's a lot of, you know, this system won't work. This is all false. This was, you know, so I just want to make a clear record of, you know, what this design does and is intended to do and meets the criteria.
thank you.
Quickly, I'll just run through. Single silt fence was originally proposed. We're doing double silt fence. There was comment about, you know, not putting silt fence along the side of the property lines. I strongly disagree with that. If you do manipulate the ground at certain points, there is potential for runoff to go onto adjacent properties. So I feel strongly silt fence should be provided on both sides of the property. On the rear of the property, we did double silt row fence with hay bales, staked with hay bales. So that's what you're seeing on the back. You saw this earlier. This is the approved site plan for this property. And I just really wanted to point out, they showed a 75-foot setback. Here's really the 100-foot wetland setback. And this is an approved plan that could be built tomorrow.
Understood, but back then, I think it might have even been 50-foot setback. So we're at 100 as of 2020, just for the record.
Okay. So maybe it's 75 then. Okay. But in today's, you know, if you're comparing apples to apples, if you compare the 100-foot to today to this plan versus our plan, this plan has, in the upland review area, it has 3,526 square feet of impervious area, no wetland buffer, and no stormwater retention. Our plan proposes 4,100 square feet of impervious, about 600 square feet more of impervious, and of course, the robust stormwater practices and wetland buffer. So that's just, you know, I just want to point that out, that this could be built today, and this is not a better plan than what we're proposing. There are no measures in here to protect the wetlands other than a 25-foot lawn grass strip right up to the wetland. So that's what is allowed under this current approval. And then just to jump to the comments quickly, these are response consultant, Mr. Trinkhouse. And the first three, and I'll go through them quickly. I know it's a long night and you guys just went through a long one. The first three are in relation to a percolation test. We strongly disagree that a percolation test is not a proper measure to design an infiltration underground detention. It is industry standard. It happens all the time. Richfield has accepted it. Everybody uses it. So we have moved forward with a percolation rate to design our system. HydroCAD actually, which is the software we use to design it, specifically says a percolation rate can be converted to an exfiltration rate. And that's exactly how we're modeling it. So those, I think, cover the first three. The next comment was in relation to the separation of the groundwater. We addressed that, so now we have that 36-inch separation. Comment 4 was in relation to the material below the proposed system, detention or infiltration system. And we did do a perk test, obviously, in that system, and it does perk, so we feel it is suitable. We also strongly disagree with not being able to place fill material underneath. We've regularly amended soils if we've run into unsuitables in the past to muck out a certain layer of restriction or whatever that case may be. So we just don't agree that, you know, you can't place it, and it's fill that's been there for decades. I mean, it might not have been existing material on site, but it's been there for, you know, like we said, the house was built in the 50s. And then there was a bunch about the outlet. That is correct. Our outlet wasn't sized appropriately to meet the water quality volume, so we've raised that outlet to make sure we address that. The concrete lip curb, you heard that about the level lip spreader. There was no water quality treatment. I think that was false, no matter what the previous approval was or previous proposal was. There certainly was. We just corrected it to make sure we captured the full water quality volume, and we added those 4-foot sumps and hoods to the plan as well. And we do still have that vegetated buffer. So I believe we've enhanced that even more so with this proposal, but I do think there was some treatment beforehand. I don't know if we checked every box of the manual, but we certainly do now. Another requirement was, you know, a lot of towns are using this MS4 for disconnecting impervious surfaces. What that really means is a lot of runoff is coming directly into town systems from driveways that sheet flow right into the road and go into town's catch basins. A lot of towns are trying to eliminate that because it's untreated water that's going into the town system that's ultimately ending up in our, you know, streams, rivers, lakes, and Long Island Sound. So the MS4, none of this property actually originally, it all sheet flowed to the rear over lawn area and then into the wetland. And in our proposal, we are actually piping everything to an underground infiltration system. So there is no connected impervious in our proposal. So you'll see that we've added that to the drainage report. A lot of these, again, are just corrections of the outlet, solved a lot of these questions. We didn't have a calculation for groundwater recharge. The requirement for groundwater recharge is now in our drainage report. The requirement is 84 cubic feet of storage. Again, we provide 1,750 cubic feet of storage, so we're well above the groundwater recharge requirement. This again related to water quality volume. There was conveyance of our pipe systems. We do have conveyance now of our piping network from the catch basins and our roof leaders. So we showed those calculations in our drainage report. Some of this saying they're claiming a 2-inch per hour. We've actually did something, you know, we actually did an infiltration percolation test, I should say, in the proposed system now, and we did come up with 1 1/10 inch, so that's 6 inches per hour. So technically we could use a 3-inch per hour in our modeling. We still left it with a 2-inch. So we feel that that suffices. We did do drawdown calculations to make sure it draw down 72 hours. And it actually draws down in 13. Those are added to our drainage report. The roof runoff, as I mentioned previously, is now routed through our infiltration system. Again, this comment, same thing. We were bypassing the roof originally, and this is in relation to water quality. We are capturing all of the new impervious surfaces now, or all impervious surfaces. This is again, you know, with the new system, it addresses all these comments about treatment and detention and reduction in rates. So I think that's the standard of them. There was one item regarding parking. I don't think there is a parking standard for any 8-30G proposal. The construction entrance went from 25 to 50. We did make that modification. temporary stockpile area, we did relocate. This was in relation to the silt fence along the property lines. I think we strongly agree that we should keep those silt fence along the side of the property lines. We're more than happy to take them off, but that just does not make sense to me. We did go to double row from single. And then we did add some details. One is the silly one was for the silt fence detail. So we actually added the detail from the actual manual in here, which I think shows it towed in. Which the consultant said we shouldn't tow it in, but we just added the detail right from the manual in here. Just to, and that's how our details are as well. And I think that was it. Oh, in the construction sequence, we added to that same sheet, that erosion and sediment control sheet. So that is my quick version. I know there's going to be some more comments coming in from the town's consultants. So I just did the paraphrase version to end this. But just to conclude, our proposal meets the Ridgefield requirements, on Ridgefield stormwater requirements, the 2004 Connecticut deep manual requirements, as well as the 2002 soil erosion control measures. That's what this plan report all demonstrates. And I'm, sorry to dump it on you 6 p.m. tonight, but in that short span, we do the best we can to try and accommodate these short windows of getting material back in. But I appreciate you guys' time and allowing us to walk through those changes.
Okay, so I think we're going to hold off on comments unless anyone has clarifications, kind of questions for tonight on the board. Tim, did you have?
Yeah, I don't want to be the guy holding everyone up. But while Andy's hot on his description, thank you. I did just want to clarify for the record that since you do have adequate soil testing data in the area on the right side of the property, was there any consideration to relocate the infiltrators and would this, in your opinion, would this site be a adequate one for pervious pavement with infiltrators below the parking lot to minimize additional disturbance in the upland review close to the wetlands?
Sure. We did consider it. It would greatly reduce the size of the system. It helps tremendously for infiltration, right, into the point source, right? So once rain falls on that asphalt, theoretically it's supposed to go right through and into the ground, which is great. They become a little bit of a maintenance nightmare, I would say, especially with porous asphalt. You gotta, it's really, you gotta vacuum it. I'm just not, what we do a lot, we do spec it a lot in Greenwich, because Greenwich loves the porous asphalt. What we end up doing is actually putting in catch basins as well and tying it into the perforated pipe system below the pavement, just to make sure if this ever was to clog, you still have the catch basins. The second measure, this is not just running off. So yeah, we did consider it, but this is, where we landed.
Yeah, my only concern being a high density neighborhood with next to water course intermittent, I'm sure is a raging rapid during something like Ida. And just overall stormwater going from very little impervious surface to almost 100% impervious on a small lot. So thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
Okay, so I think unfortunately we'll have to continue to the 13th of July. Artie, are we okay time-wise doing that?
Yes, that's actually publicating 35 days ends on July 13th. So we'll need extension after that.
Okay, very good. So we will make sure that Caleb, Andy, and And Brian, Caleb will be in touch as the peer reviews come in, so you'll get those in a timely fashion. So make sure that this latest plan gets forwarded to them. And to the public, I'm very sorry we aren't going to get to public comment tonight. We will do our best to have this part of our meeting next time start a lot earlier. And hopefully that'll happen and we'll have time to take all of your questions and comments. So-
And Madam Chair, sorry, just to interrupt briefly, Jay Klein, the meeting is going to be continued to Thursday, July 13th.
Correct.
As already you said, that's 35 days exactly, at 7 PM via Zoom, correct?
Yes,
Perfect. Okay.
yes, that's the last day. And then after that, we will need an extension if we still have more back and forth
Mhm.
to
Perfect.
deal with. And I apologize that we have these two big applications bumping into each other like this, but doing the best we can.
Sure.
Thank you
Well,
for your
to-
time.
Yeah, and to the extent there are questions that you didn't, any other board members didn't get to ask, if you funnel them through Caleb and Artie, we'll be sure to be prepared with answers by the 13th.
Yes, okay,
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
thank you. And so we are continued.
This is Kirk Carr, on the record. Thank you for watching.